Welcome to Your Next Move. Lauren, I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so those of you who don't know, this is not our first rodeo. In not our first rodeo in speaking and not our first rodeo in doing this particular episode, but some wonderful things in life have happened with Lauren. So I'm even more excited now to talk to you. So I would love for you to just introduce yourself to folks who may not know who you are.
Sure. So my name is Lauren McGoodwin. I am probably most well known for being the founder and CEO of Career Contessa, which is a women's career website that I've been running for 10-ish years. And then a couple of years ago, I actually made the transition back to working full-time corporate, where I work in content marketing on the brand team at Atlassian. And most recently, I became a mom of my third baby. So I'm a mom of three kids under the age of 5. So I think I've hit all the major bullet points. Yeah, I don't have any hobbies. No, I'm just kidding.
My goodness. So I'm going to ask you the question that I hate that we ask every single woman, but we ask because I feel like we want to know that it's possible.
Yeah.
What has allowed you to do all the things? Like, because you're running Career Contessa. And for those of you who don't know Career Contessa, A, you should. And B, when I was like a baby blogger, Career Contessa is one of the platforms I looked at. I was like, oh my God, if they can do it, like that's a big part of why I got into blogging and doing the things because I was obsessed with the site. So you have your business, which obviously has like evolved over time. Like I think back in the day, like most of us were blogging, but now
Mhm.
there's podcast, there's video, there's all of these other elements to it, brand partnerships, media. There's so much. You're working full time at Atlassian, and I believe Atlassian was formerly Trello.
No, so they bought Trello.
They
So they
bought
own Trello. They're probably most well known for Jira. Like people like to think of them as the Jira company. And
Trello.
for
Okay.
those of you, yeah. So, but they have a lot of different products now.
Oh, fun. So I didn't know Jira, but I knew I was a big Trello user earlier
Yeah.
in my career. Okay, so you have that full
Hmm.
time, like real job, and you've got three babies. So are
Yeah.
there any secrets that you can give the people on managing it all?
It's not a secret, but like childcare, like you have to have a village. So my husband also works full time. We have a live-in au pair. My mom lives nearby. All my kids are in school slash daycare. Like you have to have 3 or 4 levels of childcare and then another backup. And I'm really fortunate that I work from home, so I have a lot more flexibility where my husband commutes. So I'm really grateful for that. So I think it is really like there's no secret. It's just having a village, and I guess the skills that it takes is like it takes money, it takes organization, it takes consistency and discipline because when you have so many balls in the air that you're juggling, you don't really get to have just like spontaneous fun because you're like, well, there's so many things that are happening. I need to plan this thing, and so there's like the skill sets that I think it takes to juggle it all, and then there's like the actual like truly I need childcare. I need options for that. I need a manager who understands that I need flexibility. I need a job that gives me flexibility. Money, I mentioned that a couple of times,
Yes.
like
Heavy
you
on the
need to have,
money. Yes.
yeah, you need to have a partner who's also contributing. One of the things my husband says that I really like is we're all contributing 100%, 100% of the time. And I think, that's really important, especially for women who are often working and carry more of the household labor and invisible labor. So I wouldn't say it's like 100% 50-50 for anybody, but if you have a partner who's aware of that and also contributing, that makes a huge difference, obviously. And then, trying to prioritize yourself a little bit in there too. But that goes back to kind of like scheduling and logistics. You can only do that if you have those other things.
Yeah. I so appreciate you being so honest about that because I think that when we think of balancing it all, I think that a lot of times when we ask that question, we get a very high level, I just make it happen. And, I have
Yeah.
a calendar. And I knew when I asked you, I'm like, you're going to make it tangible and be like, nah, you need money. Like,
Yeah.
money because childcare is a thing in order to do well at your job, in order to do well at your business, in
Yeah.
order to not go crazy. You need childcare and all of these other things which take money. So I'd love
Yeah.
to ask the question about what made you after because Career Contessa is very successful. So what made you decide to go back to full-time work and still maintain and not shut it down?
Yeah, I I think, Career Contessa lived through COVID as all of the businesses and people did. And that was very much a turning point of like, what is the future of this business? What are we doing? Then, of course, the next chapter was sort of AI. So, you in this like 5 year time span, and I know everyone's career sort of had this. It's like we had COVID, we had AI, we had changes in the job market. It was a lot happening within a very really short time frame.
Yeah.
But during that time frame, I also had two kids. And then I also hit the 10-year mark with Career Contessa. And I think when you hit milestones, you just naturally start thinking about like, what are my next 10 going to be? Like I just hit 40 and everyone's like, look, what was the last decade like? Like there's something about decades that make you really like, I think, reflective and thinking about what you want for your future. And I really felt like with Career Contessa, I was ready to sort of just try something new. And I was never anti corporate. I loved being a recruiter at Hulu, which is what kind of brought me to creating Career Contessa. And I still loved all the career part of it. But I was sort of curious about like what else was out there. I ended up finding a role at Atlassian that was really fantastic. So, for me, I came from a really fortunate position where it's like I didn't hate my job. I was sort of looking for something that I didn't really know what it was, but I was like, here are the swim lanes I'm sort of interested in, and I'm kind of talking to people and keeping my options open and applying for jobs. So I wouldn't say I had like a perfect idea, but the like right for me job became available. And for me, it was worth sort of saying, I'm going to stop doing Career Contessa full time and I'm going to try this thing because I'm really interested in it. And I think a lot of that also has to do with life stage. Like I had two kids at home. Entrepreneurship is like having another child, or it's like,
Yeah.
you're running it, you are doing all the things. And so I also was thinking about for the next 10 years, next decade, what do I want to do? And for me, this seemed like a really interesting opportunity where I could kind of take my foot off the entrepreneur gas pedal, but also go back into the corporate thing. So I think life stage has a lot to do with this, probably more than anything else. And then it comes down to just like truly the logistics of like, what is the company? What is the job? What are you doing? Who is your manager? Physically, where do you work? That kind of thing. It was sort of a perfect storm of all those things. And I also want people to know this is not like it landed in my lap. I actually had a job search. It took me, even though I'm the quote Career Contessa, it did take me 6 to 9 months to find a job and go through that process. I got lots of rejections along the way too. So, I speak about this stuff and talk about it, and I also live it in my own life.
I tell people that all the time. I recently started doing public speaking coaching because that's how I built my business over the years. And I tell folks I still get rejected
Yeah.
all the time. I think I just put a
Mhm.
podcast out yesterday and I talked about how I apply to a lot of engagements all the time and I just see what happens so I can understand the trends. And I'm like, I probably only have about a 25% acceptance rate.
Which
And
is
I'm
actually pretty amazing, you know?
pretty good. It's pretty good, but it's also like a good flood of rejections that come through. It's not always like a yes. I think
Yeah.
I tell folks that sometimes you could be like that girl. That's what they say now, right? You could be that girl in like your pocket, but that does not mean unless you're Oprah or like Emma
Yeah.
Green, like people do not know who you are. You still have to go through the process. You still have to get rejected. Because like as much like for me, like I know the career girl is, and I'm like I know career Contessa, like I know it, but a lot of folks may not. And that
Yeah.
means you still have to go through the rigmarole of like the interviews and whatnot. So, what does career Contessa look like today as you're navigating both?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's a little bit more passive than it used to be. So the only new content that we put out is on the podcast. I love the podcast. So selfishly, I keep it going because I really love it and I love talking to people and I get to interview a lot of authors. And to be honest, um, learning from other people is good for my day job. It's good for me personally. So, I selfishly have kept that one. So we still put new content out with the podcast and we've kept the newsletter that goes out twice a month. The website still has career coaching. The coaches are very active on there, but way less what are all the new things that we can create and build, and a little bit more like here are the things we have and how can we make sure they're getting to the right people when they need them. And like mentioning them, when people are job searching, like, oh, we have a resume course and things like that. So it's a much more part-time passive role than I've had before. And I I did start to set the business up in that way when I started to think about, okay, what am I going to do next? I always wanted to have the business be reliant on Career Contessa, not on Lauren McGoodwin. And so that was sort of a conscious choice. And now I get to actually see that play out versus before I was much more active in it. And overall, the community is still there because it was never reliant just on me being there in the room with them.
Why did you make that decision early on?
Maybe it was the era. I feel like if I had started a business in 2020, maybe it would have been like, more career advice with Lauren or something. But the kind of like the trend when I started was, it was like we had Pop Sugar, we had the Every Girl, like there was like brand, like I wanted to build a brand around career advice for women. At the time, there was really nothing. There was just Lean In,
Yeah.
and maybe Girl Boss had come out, or I can't remember if it was before or after. So that was just sort of the trend back then. And also, I always wanted to selfishly like make it available for someone to buy it if it was the right fit, or to like merge with another company or something like that. And so if I wasn't part of the company, I still wanted people to be able to trust Career Contessa as a brand that could give them trusted career advice.
I love that. So it sounds like you began Career Contessa almost with the end in mind. Like I'm building a product that can be sold if needed and is not dependent on me. And I think that is very different from now. I think we're currently in like the era of the personal brand,
Yeah.
it feels like, where it has to be connected to a founder, very like founder led versus 100%. I remember when the Every Girl came out. That was another one of those sites. I was like, oh my gosh, like I
Yeah.
love this. I remember the Pop Sugar era too. Like it was a really fun time on the internet.
Yeah.
How would you say that you built your audience over time and versus like what would we be doing now? What would you do now if you had started
Oh,
over?
totally. Yeah. I mean, very slowly, very organically. There was no viral TikTok. There was, Instagram, I guess, was new when we started, but, so when we started, it was you blogged, you put out content on a regular basis. Even newsletters were not sexy at the time. Like
Yeah.
Facebook groups were sexy, and I remember
Oh my
sort of
god.
like recoiling from that. I was like, and thank God we didn't like put all our eggs in that basket. So, we started by just creating content, and search engine optimization was starting to become a thing. So
Mhm.
part of it was you would put out content, people would find your content. So there was that organic word of mouth or organic search that got you, and then also word of mouth. So people telling other people about it. Then came the era of sign up for your newsletter. That was when you started to learn, like, okay, we're really going to own our own audience. We
Mhm.
always had an Instagram from the beginning that has had so many different lives of like what are we doing with the Instagram, and like eventually it became a tool of like we're trying to use Instagram to get people to sign up for the newsletter or get people to read our content, but in the very beginning it was like this is behind the scenes of what we're doing, because that's how if anybody remembers the early days of Instagram, it's like you would put a filter on a photo, so it's just so different now. Like if I was starting Career Contessa today, it probably would have been me making videos giving career advice. In the very beginning, it was me going and speaking to college campuses or me hosting webinars, which I remember one time sitting in a meeting and I talked about webinars, and this woman was like, that is so old school. And I was like, and this is like before COVID too. And like she thought webinars
Yeah.
were like old and outdated. She had no idea COVID was going to make webinars cool again, kind of thing. And it was like there weren't really podcasts when we first started too, but we started our podcast in 2018. So it was basically content and media and letting people know through a bunch of free advice. Here's how you can trust and rely on us. And then we started to develop our own products, online courses, the podcast, advertising on the site. So that was one of the ways that we monetize. Again, if I was starting out today, I would just go on TikTok or Instagram Reels and make videos of me probably chopping lettuce while I give you career advice. Like it's the aesthetic and everything has changed so much. And it probably would be like career advice with Lauren or something like that. It would have been 100% probably reliant on me as a personal brand, whereas before it wasn't. And to be honest, when I made the decision to go back into corporate, that was part of my decision making. I didn't want to become or have to
Mhm.
become a personal brand in that way. That was a conscious choice. And, for the people who do it, I think it's great. It's fantastic. And they have huge careers because of it. It just wasn't a fit for me.
And it's so interesting. I love that I could reminisce with you about the good old days. Like when folks are talking about Substack, I called one of my girlfriends the other day and I was like, I don't want to pay for anyone's Substack. I want an RSS feed. And to those
Yeah.
to blog back in the day, I had an RSS feed that would come to my
Yeah.
email, and I could read every new blog post that came out, and all the content was just there in one place. So the old school in me that who's thinking about like 2010, 2011, I'm
Yeah.
like, this is a blog. This is an RSS feed. Why do I have to pay $20, $50, $80 to read? Because back in the day, I just had my RSS. But if your website was really good, I would want to go to your website and read the post, and I would just click over from the feed, but it
Yeah.
wasn't so individual, and I think that really speaks to a lot of things that you talked about, even on a platform like Substack, which I'm probably gonna be joining soon because that's, the thing that folks like to do, and I miss
Yeah.
blogging, but I say all that to talk badly about it to be like, "Oh, I'm probably gonna do it too." It's
Yeah.
still so individual, even though it's on a community platform, which seems to be the biggest trend. Now, you
Yeah.
touched it quickly with speaking. How did speaking and those webinars contribute to growing Career Contessa and your brand so that even though your goal is to like transfer it all to Career Contessa?
Yeah, I think it was just a way to get the Career Contessa name out there. So I was a recruiter at Hulu who was now giving career advice from a unique standpoint of I had been there and done that. That was very unique back then. Now I know a lot of recruiters have are on TikTok or Instagram or LinkedIn and they're giving advice. But back in the days, it was like one, women's career advice was not really a thing. I remember again, like there was lifestyle websites that every once in a while would talk about careers. And then the next trend after that was like they started to have like a work section in their
Mhm.
on their websites, right? But we were a fully dedicated like career development website. All we did was talk about careers. And so one, I would go to these events and I already stood out because we were a unique niche. I had the experience to back it up. So I was sharing information that people were like, wait, I haven't heard this before. Like the only time you got career advice was maybe from your career center in college. After that, it was like the Wild West, figure it out yourself.
Yes.
So I think that that alone was sort of this unique pitch. And then when we were there, it was like, well, we're helping women with one of the biggest, most important things in their lives, their careers. So this isn't that crazy. And then when we would be there, I would say, okay, now follow Career Contessa, sign up on our newsletter to stay in touch. And you know what I think was interesting is it was sort of the era of like, you had a career and no, everyone just thought like, oh, your work and your personal life are separate. Well, that was the era where we were basically saying like, no, you like bring your real self and life to
Yes.
work and vice versa. So you're going to need a website or a career source that you trust or something, and so
Mhm.
we started to kind of pitch it that way and let people know like just like you have like a lifestyle website that you go to or a beauty thing that you like we are the career brand for you. So that's how I started it, with like doing public speaking, getting people to understand like we are giving you career advice from experts. If we don't have it, we're going out and finding an expert who has that advice. People appreciated that because people appreciate advice that is from real sources. And then from all of that work, a book agent reached out to me and I eventually did write a book. It's called Power Moves with
Yes.
Harper Business. And so that was, kind of I think there's like phase one of my speaking career, and phase two was sort of like now that you have a book, now, as you know, it kind of changes the speaking gigs you get to speak at. Like I spoke at TEDWomen, their conference, and all of that was sort of because the book does create a platform for you to kind of stand and launch from. And now that I'm at Atlassian, it's a little different, but now I do public speaking through my job at Atlassian too. So
Oh, that's
it
amazing.
yeah, it has. What's interesting is your skills are very transferable wherever you go. If that's a skill you want to have to be transferable, and it just sort of can look different, I think, among different stages and different places.
And when I teach public speaking, I tell folks that it can do a few things. And I think public speaking can do a lot of things, but like it could be brand building, whether that's your
Hmm.
personal brand, you're trying to make new relationships. It could be like lead generation, where you're bringing people like you did to Career Contessa, to your website, to whatever platform, whatever program you have if you're selling something, or you can make money,
Yeah,
or a combination of like all the things. It sounds like you've probably done all of those things along the way.
I think I started at the first one,
I
then
love
got to the second one, and now have ended up with the third one. But yeah, yeah, totally.
I love that. Were you excited about the public speaking piece or were you nervous about it when you began back then?
I think it depends on the type of public speaking I'm doing. So if it's sitting on a panel or giving a work like a very tangible workshop, like I love those. Those feel very tangible, black and white
Yeah.
to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a start and a finish. You are going to walk away with some sort of step by step from me. That's just my style. I think the public speaking that I get nervous is when it's sort of more inspirational, aspirational, and you're kind of giving the big talk. That's a little hard for me. But I would say I've gotten better at that, and it's funny because the way it translates into corporate is I'm a very good executor. Sometimes I can struggle a little bit with sort of the big view, the strategy,
Mhm.
and so it makes sense. Like when you're an executor, you like a workshop where it's like I'm going to teach you one, two, three. When
Yes.
you're and the part that I struggle with a little bit is sort of giving you this inspiring talk without being like, and here's three exact steps on how to get it. Like it's like there's like this tick of mine where I'm like, I have to tell you this,
Oh,
how to
yeah.
do this thing, so I think that, and I worked with like a speaking coach who helped me when I did have my book and I was kind of going around and doing these different
Mhm.
types of talks. And that was a really like interesting learning path or learning curve for me to sort of be like, get out of that style and move into this style. So I wouldn't say I still get nervous about it. I would
Me
still
too.
rather sit on a panel or interview somebody else. Like I'd much rather be the interviewer than their interviewee sometimes. But I think it's always good to do the things that kind of scare you too.
Oh, absolutely. And I want to go back for a moment because you said you did the reverse. You said you started at paid and moved back. So how did I have an idea and I know what I teach, but I would love to hear how the paid speaking came to you first and then everything trickled down
Well, it didn't exactly come. No, the pay came to me after I had the book.
after.
So
Got it.
yeah, so I started with the let me come and speak to your group for free. Like I would speak to people's intern, summer intern groups or some and things like that. I would teach workshops about like LinkedIn brand building to companies. Here's another thing: a lot of companies do not want to pay you to come in and teach career advice on resumes and LinkedIn because they're like, why are we teaching them how to get a job? So like there was another thing, another challenge I had was when I was very workshop heavy, people weren't going to pay for that for those obvious reasons. Once I became a lot more inspirational based on the book, then it was like the Googles, the Amazons, the LinkedIns were like, all right, we'll pay you to come in and speak to this group because you're not telling them how to find a new job. So that
It's so
helps.
funny because my book is called Next Move, Best Move. Yours is Power Moves. Like they could be right next to each other. I've changed the title of my keynote so many times because people are like, Next Move, Best Move. Like their best move better be
Yeah,
right here
yeah,
in this company.
yeah.
So I have another title for that keynote. But you're absolutely right. I think that when it's very tactical, like build your LinkedIn, resume building, that, and I know like you and I could both do that, like with our eyes closed, hands tied behind your back, like right now, you could do it tomorrow if you had to. That speaking, you're right, it's harder, and especially in some environments to get the paid. But once you kind of lean on the motivation, and I was exactly the same way. And like I love to give you the things. So
Yeah.
even my keynoting, I'm still gonna make sure I tie it back and tell you what to do. Like, this was all great,
Yeah,
you're so
yeah.
happy, but I want you to go home and change your life. So just do these 3 things real quick.
Yeah, yeah. You have to take three things from me, please. I will die otherwise.
Yeah, pretty much. I do the same exact thing, but I think that's what makes some of the best speakers great, because I think
Mhm.
speakers who they are just motivational, you leave and you feel good, but you're not as memorable versus the speaker who they did all that, they inspired you, but you actually went home and did something that they told you to do and it worked. Then you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, no, I'm an evangelist now." Like, I love.
Yeah. Yeah, I no, I agree. I have gone to so many speaking events and listened to so many things too, and right away I can kind of tell if I'm gonna like their style or not. And part of it is, are you motivational with action or are you just like a raw motivation? Like I'm not interested in like the women's conference where we get up and we dance and then somehow that was supposed to motivate me to do something. Like I don't mind the like get up and get your blood flowing thing. I just need you to like give me something tangible to hold on to after that.
Oh, yeah, and I'm sure you and I have been in very different coasts, but very similar experiences. I tell folks it took me a while to even launch a public speaking program because I was like, "Yes, this is what I do," but it wasn't what I thought I was going to teach. I was very much like, "No, I teach communication, like how to be a better manager." And now I'm
Mhm.
like, "Okay, well, let me finally do it." And it's been amazing, but I tell folks one of the reasons why I started it is because I'm so tired of going to conferences and hearing bad speakers. I'm like, there are
Yeah.
experts out in this world who need to learn how to teach and create an engaging, transformative experience. And there's lots of
Yep.
folks who don't know, who may not be a celebrity, who could kill it at a conference.
Yeah.
but they just don't know how. They haven't pitched
Yeah.
it and nobody knows who you are. So I'm like, nope, I'm going to take that on as my personal responsibility to improve conferences. So you and I aren't sitting in the back of the room like, so do you want to go grab like some Caesar
Yeah.
salad and
Gotta
French
get
fries?
out of here.
So like, I definitely will go leave and have lunch with someone. So I want to make sure that we're conscious of your time today. So before we leave, I want you to talk to me about what is your vision for the rest of 2026, 2027? What are you working on? What's new? So we can kind of follow along.
Well, I'm on maternity leave till October, which is a
Okay.
blessing, but it also makes my vision for, everything a little short because right now
That is
so
fine.
just so everyone knows, I have a 8-week old. So my vision is sort of like, can he sleep through the night? Like, when is
Yeah.
that going to happen? Like, and
That's a
it's
beautiful
interesting.
vision. That's a beautiful
Yeah.
vision.
Yes, my vision board is full of sleep. No, I'm really excited to sort of this might sound weird to people, but like this is my third last baby. It's like, okay, I'm done having kids. I'm gonna, get out of that stage. Yes, I'm still gonna have small kids, but it's like I'm really looking forward to sort of um, going back to work, knowing that like my kids are kind of as they're getting older and kind of getting into the groove of their own things. Like this will be a new stage in my career too, where it's like, oh, no more babies. Like at some point we'll get out of the diaper stage and out of that. And so, and especially since I just turned 40, there is a thought of like, what's my next decade going to be? And I feel like it's been a lot of like building and maintaining. I had this big like career shift a couple years ago with going back into corporate. And now I'm sort of, I guess, focused on like the settling in, like the becoming much more confident in my role. Like I feel like I've had a lot of new things thrown at me, and now I want to like settle in and do those things really well, or start to prioritize or pick focus areas. It will be sort of interesting to see. Like I've never gone back to work after maternity leave in corporate world. Like I've only gone back as an entrepreneur, which everyone knows when you're an entrepreneur, there is no maternity leave. So it's like,
Yeah.
my vision is sort of to like find my groove with that and have this like settling in. As far as like major career moves at the moment, I think I'm gonna continue to do the Career Contessa podcast for as long as I want to, and I like it. The nice thing about having it more as like a side hustle and part time is that the pressure to do something that I don't want to do because I have to doesn't isn't really there anymore, so that's great. To your point, I'd probably love to, do some more public speaking. It's been incredibly hard when you're pregnant because you can't travel, so
My husband
so
and I
that
are already having that argument. We're thinking about having a baby next year. And he's like, I hope you know
yeah.
that we're not going to have you getting on anybody's plane at XYZ months pregnant, like thinking you're going to be over there. And I was like, oh, we'll see.
Yeah, and you know what? It is. I remember someone reached out when I was pregnant with my second kid, and I couldn't do it because I was too pregnant. And this is something that only women understand when you have to give up a career opportunity because you like literally physically can't because you're pregnant or because something's going on with your kid or just like anything in life. And it just stings. It really stings, and it stings to hear them be like, oh no, okay, we'll contact you next year, but you never hear from them again. Like there is a huge part of that that really does sting. And so, part of it has taught me also to just like make sure my basket is full of other things too. Like it's not all about work or all about kids or all about, like I yes, I'm busy, but I appreciate having that variety, even if it does like push me to the mental brink sometimes. So yeah, that's not a very specific answer, but I think it's an honest answer of I'm just trying to get to October and then back to work and see what that transition. And I hope 2027 is a lot more settling in and confident in what I'm doing next.
I love that one. Thank you for I always want the honest answer. We don't need like the one that just sounds pretty for the podcast. Like tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
Where can folks follow and stay in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm most active on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I like to share career advice there. And what's kind of fun is now it's coming from my own quote corporate diaries, as well as some stuff with Career Contessa, especially the conversations on the podcast. So Lauren McGoodwin on LinkedIn. If you want to connect, I will always accept it, and I love to connect with new people.
Thank you so much, Lauren, for coming back on the Your Next Move podcast. This episode will go live this time. I'm very excited
Amazing.
about
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.